So I'm going to describe how digital rights management works, what it's all about, the process flow, and then scratch the surface in terms of the applications that can be developed over digital rights management. So you've seen all this picture, right? Right? Several times, including the clouds we brought from Seattle there in unicast and multicast. So you see, rights management is, can take place in all three aspects here. In the authoring side for encapsulating rules, in distribution side for very protected content distribution, and in playback side for enforcing those rules. So before I get started, let me ask a few questions. How many people have bought something on the internet with music related things? How many people bought CDs? Could you clap, please? All right, so why I can't see. Right. How many people bought, went to launch.com or sitezone.com, sites like that sell digital content and you can download digitally? Right? How many people know a lot about DRM? Cut this short, cut down quickly and then go back. Right. So this is great that you're familiar with a lot of these topics already, so we can go through the details very quickly. First thing is, why DRM? I mean, today you've heard lots of talks about how to take audio or video inputs and make compelling presentations, compelling content in terms of audio, visual effects, snap things up, and have web pages that do this thing, and have interaction. So you've all heard a lot of information about how to get these things done, and I bet you're all ready to go and create these web pages and get these things going. So now, where does rights management come in? The key aspect that comes in is for commerce elements. And even for commerce, I bet a lot of you have been to sites, .com advertisements that keep bombarding you every 15 seconds on the internet, the TV these days, and looked at a variety of commerce models on the internet, a variety in terms of the way you pay, the way you receive goods, etc. So Amazon.com is one example, BarnesandNoble.com, CDNow.com, a bunch of places are selling goods digitally on the internet. So now the question is, how can you take all the content that you use these Windows Media tools and create them, and then how does it tie back into the commerce elements of it? So there are two key elements right here. First one is the physical goods commerce. A lot of sites are already doing today. You can use all of the things that you've done today that you know already, create great content, put it on CDs, and sell it through traditional means. People come to your website, pay through credit card, and then give you a billing shipping address. You put it on a CD or a DVD or any other format, send it to them. Now, what DRM enables is that it takes it from that level to a completely new level of digital goods commerce, where people can come in, go through the traditional e-commerce motion, and then they can have content shipped digitally. So this is the digital goods commerce. Instead of having the CD shipped through UPS or FedEx, now you can have all of the content available for you through the high bandwidth that almost everywhere here has. So now the bandwidth, the opportunity that we have in through digital distribution is you have tremendous amount of content. The stores don't need to have physical space to hold all of these goods and can have as much as the disk space allows, a tremendous amount of the content that you have available, catalog, and you can distribute it digitally, you can cut the cost of distribution, and you can have a variety of new business models to take advantage of shipping this content. Now, the key reason for the advantages is that the publishers need to only keep one copy on the server, and any number of customers that come in, they can issue the same copy, as opposed to the physical CDs where you have to pre-manufacture a bunch of them and stack the warehouses. Now, the same advantage goes back to the consumers. Now you can buy one copy and share it with millions of their friends on the internet. So now, that's one of the key bottlenecks of doing digital distribution, and the technology, the digital rights management technology, gives people the framework and the tools to control that in such a way to maximize the benefits for the content producers and also for the consumers. So the key concepts, when you think of rights management from the Microsoft perspective, of the Microsoft technology, there is a key key distinction here. When you go to cover CD, you buy a CD, you take it anywhere you go. You don't think in terms of life. You put it on a CD player or a PC and just play it. You give it to a friend, they can take it to their home and it just plays. So in the DRM context, we separate that into two concepts. You have protected content, the big bulky files, 5 megabytes per song. If it's audio, if it's video, hundreds of megabytes. And then the permission to play the song, the license, is conceptually separated out. The licenses are, cryptographic blobs, like a few hundred bytes, at most 1K. Now, by separating these two out, we give tremendous amount of flexibility for content owners in the way they distribute content and do commerce. So you can have this big service with all of these protected files. So you can have these big warehouses of protected content and then distribute them through traditional means or through any other means, and then issue the licenses separately, where you go through a commerce server, go through a commerce experience, and then you get these small blobs very quickly, content plays. The key benefit that this model allows is that people can now legitimately share protected content. So if I go to, say, launch.com, download one of their songs, and I just love the song, I can now email that song to all of my friends. And the song is still encrypted. It stays encrypted on the disk. It stays encrypted through the email. And when my friends try to play the song, they'll be asked to go back to the website and get a separate license for themselves. So in a way, when people share it, it's for the good of the content owner, where informal distribution is a good thing, and all the people go back to the commerce site to get a license, and whatever rules the content owners want, whether it's payment through credit cards or registration, they can do that and increase their customer base. So rights management is all about how to define these licenses, issue them, how customers can acquire these licenses, how we enforce the rules that the content owners envision in these licenses, how we manage these licenses, etc. These licenses, we'll get into more detail afterwards, encapsulate the rights. The rights in the first version are pretty simple: a right to play a song or video on the PC, and right to copy it to a portable device that the customer may have, and a few other rights that we'll get into. So to describe the benefits again, that it allows copyright owners to protect the content and come up with creative business rules for governing usage of this content, and how people can use this is left to all of your imagination. Tons of possibilities. We get lots of demands from various content owners that we talk to on how they would like to see their content distributed, what kind of models that they want to explore, and there are several content owners that see different benefits from the same technology. There are some people for whom getting a list of customers is very important, so they can do selective sales and then marketing, and then cut down their marketing costs. And also from consumers' point of view, there could potentially be a wide variety of content available, because content owners now don't have to be afraid of their content being ripped off, and can do selective distribution of their content. And also the technology itself is seamlessly integrated on the server side into the Windows Media Server components, and on the client side into the SDK, and a lot of players built on the SDK, the Windows Media Player, and a variety of other players, Music Max, Sonic 4D, Sonic, etc. So when you take 30,000 foot level view of what DRM is in terms of components, is that there is a client side component and there are two server side components. In the client side, the technology is core to the operating system. In the first version, we've applied it to the Windows Media technologies, and now into the SDK. As I said, if you want to write an application, use these APIs, you can use the rights management technology and then deal with protected content, enforce rights, etc. On the server side, there's this rights manager component. There are quite a few white tables on nsdn.microsoft.com and other places that describe detailed usages of rights manager. And you can split that in sort of two aspects. One is the hosting aspect, where you take music or video and use all the new tricks that you learned today so far and create compelling ASF files, and then you go through this hosting process to create protected ASF files. Now you can distribute them through any number of means, and once the customer gets them, there is this other server component that deals with issuing licenses. The core technology here for issuing licenses, is web-based. These are, small pieces of information that goes to the web, to the PC, and there is incredible amount of opportunities for tying a clearance component into commerce scenarios. So you can tie it to a commerce server, Microsoft Site Server Commerce, or any other commerce server outside, or if you're thinking of internet applications, you can tie that into other proprietary systems for controlling who gets access and when. So there are 3 levels of slides in the following slides on where we drill down into how this thing works. And most of this talk, I'm going to focus on how the technology works, and also because of the time part, I haven't planned for any demos. And the good thing here is that if DRM is done well, customers should never notice that rights management is there. From a customer point of view, if they have to go and their normal behavior is restricted or impacted, they are not going to switch to another website. So if everything is done right, rights management happens all underneath, behind the screen, and any one of the videos and demos you saw today might as well have been implemented through DRM. The second aspect is also that instead of giving examples of commerce tie-in, I'm going to describe how this works, and hopefully, all of you are very smart and creative, and you can find good ways of using, understanding how this works, and apply it to various commerce scenarios to try a variety of business models. This entire technology is in its infancy. There are a few companies that have tried some standard ways of distributing content. A lot of possibilities are still wide open. This sort of gives a high-level overview of what happens. So this combines an end-to-end mixing of the server components and client components. So let me walk through all the steps and describe what happens. So the first phase is on the server side and hosting side. So use all the tools to create, excellent ASF files and digital content, step 1, and then you go through this package of tools. Packager tool is a very simple web app where you type in some information. The key information is a URL to the license server. And then click OK, and it encrypts that content, encrypts all of the ASF, and creates this packaged content. It's number 2 there. Once you have this, it's a regular protected, it looks like an ASF file. It has a lot of those tags. Part of the data is encrypted, but for all practical purposes, you can treat that as a regular file, and then share it through any of the web servers. You can put it on a Microsoft IS web server or any other web server. You can put it on a FTP site. You can email it. You can put it on CD-ROMs and distribute it. You can do any number of distribution mechanisms for this protected ASF file. The second possibility is you can put it on Windows Media Server, and you can stream that content. So you can do either one of those cases. And once the customer gets a hold of the content through, say, a Windows Media Player or the dozen or so other players that have used SDK and rights management capabilities, and they try to play the protected content, the SDK and the runtime realize that, recognize that this is protected content, and they try to check the local system to see if the customer has a license for that content. If they don't have a license for that content, a browser is popped up, and in step 5 now, a browser takes the customer to this license server. And on the license server side, the site can customize the site with any number of web pages. So you can have the first page might welcome the user for trying to play this particular content and ask them for their credit card information, or get them to register and give their email name or something else so they can get information about this particular artist or this particular producer. And after going through any number of web pages, the last step, last web page seamlessly downloads this license back to the customer. And this license is a small file that goes through, through ActiveX control back to the media player, and now it's bound to the PC and the receiving PC. So customers got the protected content in step 4, and after going through this web experience, they get this license in step 7, and now the content just plays. They won't see a difference. The next time they try to play the same content, they don't have to be on the web. They already have a license, and the content starts playing. And the license, has some rules and restrictions on how it works, and sometimes license can expire. When the license expires, the customer is taken back to the web to get a license. So the first use, customer gets the license. Afterwards, they don't have to be on the web, and they can continue playing this content. This is again only one of the scenarios. This has been the way the first wave adopters have implemented DRM, but by no means things need to happen this way. You could pre-issue a license first and then give the content afterwards, or you can issue both of them at the same time. So you can do any number of combinations depending on what business model you want to solve and how you want to deal with customers. So you have a set of customers that are subscribers that come back to your website again and again. They pay a monthly fee. You could issue a license at one time and then keep giving them new content every day or every week. Or by the traditional, e-commerce scenarios, have the customer come in, get the goods, pay and get the license and the content at the same time, or the case that I described where you get the content first, and on first use, you go to get the license. So one of the examples, I'm sure you've seen it several times so far today, is Launch.com has been one of the first adopters of this technology, and they have taken their songs and done a lot of work customizing the website. So they made a lot of things to make it look very compelling, and they have this download buttons. Once you click the download button, it takes you to one more web page where it describes the content. You get the file. When you're trying to play it, you go back to Launch website to register with them. And once you register with them, you get the license and content starts playing. I've seen the demo earlier, so I'll skip this one. So now we'll drill down one level deep into how this works again, and with the idea that to give you an idea of the possibilities that you can come up with for implementing rights management. So in the step again, on the server side you have these blue components, content server and license server, and on the client side you have this consumer PC. On the server side, the content server and license server, you can have them run on the same machine, or you can have them run on separate machines, or even have them geographically separated. So we'll walk through the same scenario again one more time, and then with the caveat that there are other possibilities that ways you can implement this technology. So the first thing is, let's say I'm an artist and I've recorded some songs in my garage, and now I want to sell those songs. First, I want to build a big fan base. So I'm going to give these songs free for customers for a month, and after I build a big enough fan base, then I'm going to start charging money for this content. So for that scenario, what I would do is, first I'll go get a degree in computer science, but first after getting the contents downloaded and from T-Server where these two are implemented, use all the tools that I described before to create the ASF file, and then I run through this packager, and I put the URL back to the license server. And after I install the software on the server side, run through this packaging tool, I point the input file to the song I created, I click OK. It creates this the encrypted copies of the song. And then I would create a web page, a store front end that describes what the song is about, maybe more information about the artist, and then give URLs to the song. And then advertise this URL, on all the websites. And then, so let's say now I'm the consumer, I happen to be at this website, and then I like the song, and it sounds very interesting, so I click on the URL. Now the file is downloaded to my PC. You can do through traditional web download mechanisms. And then once the song comes to the customer's PC, I save it on my desktop, and then I try to play it. When I try to play it, the Windows Media Player here as the DRM component in the operating system, do you have a license for this particular song? So here, every piece of content is given a unique ID. So media player passes that unique ID to rights management, says, do you have a license for this song? And rights management looks in the local license store and sees if there is a license for that song. The first time, say a customer does not have a license. So DRM says no, and media player looks at the URL that's embedded in this file, launches a browser, and takes the user to this license server. So part of this web experience, DRM formulates encrypted parameters that go with the request that identify what the song is about and who the song is for, so the song can come back encrypted. And just obvious thing that I want to state, Microsoft is not in this picture. So from the consumer, it goes directly to the content site, the clearance site comes back, Microsoft knows nothing about what's going on. So once the request goes to the license server, they do some trust validation and authentication to find out who the song is for. And the first web page it goes to, right there, so thank you for choosing this song. You're welcome. You're great. You're one of the first tech users, and you're going to have this song free for 30 days. And if you like this song more, come back and I'll send you more songs. So let's type all of that and say have people type in their email address. Take the email address, store it in a SQL database, and then last page automatically sends the license back. Number 5 goes back to the customer's machine. This license has the key to decrypt the song. So between the content server and license server, there's a one-time shared secret at the onset, and afterwards, content server can keep adding more and more content to its repertoire, and that doesn't need to go back to the license server. So the encryption happens here with the key, the secret, and the decryption key is sent as part of the license. But all of these communications, again, are protected through the standard encryption schemes, a variety of public key-based schemes, so that interception at this level does not buy anything, because at this stage, the license is already bound to this unique machine here. And once the license comes to the license store, a media player takes the protected file, gives portions of the protected encrypted content to DRM. DRM uses the key to decrypt it and give the clear text content back to the media player. The media player sends it back to the speakers or displays. So all the protected code comes here, decrypted, and back to the player here. So all the time the content is stored on the PC, it's always stays encrypted. Second thing is that from a rights management perspective, we do a lot more things here to make sure that the player is a trusted player. All the dozen or so players and the future players that come in have some authentication information in them. So when they talk to DRM, they present a certificate saying who they are, and the DRM component makes sure that the player is a trusted player, that it will obey all the rules that are specified in the license, and that it's not going to start taking its content and type it straight to the internet to a public place. So after it does all this authentication, it gives only after the authentication passes does it start giving clear text content. And part of the requirements for getting a certificate is that the people developing these applications sign on to this agreement that their code, to the best of their knowledge, obeys the license rules, and they don't try to bypass those rules. So this pretty much gives the overview of what happens here, and the areas where what people can do to build upon this technology and do great things is, first is a web page is step 2 to make the process really compelling so that it's just another file download, and web pages in this area to integrate commerce elements and bring users in, let them go through commerce experience and give them licenses. So to go back to the general features of what the first version of rights management does, is that it works with all Windows media, anything that's in an ASF file. So it can have pure audio, video, or video with still images of the artist instead of just an album cover. You can have several pictures of the artist that keep changing as the song progresses. And another facet of this is that the rights management works with any codec. It works with our Windows Media Audio codec, MP3 codec, any codec that can be embedded in the ASF file. Rights management works with that and helps with protection of that. And at the core of it, the diagram that you saw before, the rights management is sort of an OS level service, and it's media agnostic in terms of it has known ours that it's actually audio or video content. The same concepts apply for other media as well. And this technology can work both with for streaming content and download of content. So I'll describe some of the examples of the way people have implemented in the first round. Is that one? Some sites have taken music with images of artists, just one image of the artist and copyright information, and done rights management where they are encouraging people to come in, they register, and after they register, they get a silent license downloading, and they get the content, and they can play it anytime they want. So most of the deployments have been in audio. There are a few companies that tried with video. Sitesound.com, for example, sells movies in ASF file format. They are just 200 megabytes, so most people can get them very quickly. And once you get the song, movie, and you try to play, you go back to the website and you pay with a credit card. They can give you rentals, digital rentals for a day or for a week, or you can purchase a movie where you get unlimited license that that stays forever. And they charge anywhere from $3 to $40 for the content. So they're one of the few early adopters in terms of trying to sell content. Most of the uses so far have been for promotional use, where you give the song for consumers, let them listen to it free, collect their email addresses, and if they like the song, send them an email where they can go buy a physical CD at a store at a discount, for example. So those are the first wave, and I'm sure we'll see lots of other forms of deployment of this technology after you have a chance to go back to your places and experiment with this technology. So now describe what we ship and what it takes to get going. The rights manager is a server-side component. It runs on Windows NT4 or Windows 2000, and it's built upon the web server, the IIS and SQL 7. And there's a simple, they need a certificate from Microsoft. It's a very simple process. And the reason they need the certificate is sort of twofold. First is to sort of do this, they implement this trust mechanism. In some ways, from a content owner's perspective, they are figuring out what the rules of business rules are. Like say, when they have a license that's valid for 1 month, they really want to make sure that the license expires after 1 month and that it stays bound to the customer and it can be shared. So in some ways, when they give that content, encrypt that content and put it out on the web, they expect that they're trusting the applications and servers to enforce those rules. So this deployment of sort of building of trust is sort of a complex issue. The servers need to trust the clients need to trust the server, and the DRM client itself needs to trust the applications that are rendering it, and in the future, applications need to trust the operating system, software drivers, and so on. So we're taking the first step in in building this trust framework for version 1, and the certificate sort of helps the client trust the server side. The way it comes out of the box, it can be run on the same machine, both hosting and clearing. And what we have is actually only a starting point. That is, it sets up a simple music store where you can take content, when you package it, it lists it in a simple web page. And when customers try to get a license for a song, we collect the email address, save it in a SQL database, and send the license out. So you get all of this, from the simple store. As soon as you install it, within half an hour, you can have the site up and running, and you can take some of the songs and try it out from a separate client. Make sure that you can get the protected song, get the license, do the email things, and then once you get going, then you can elaborate the web pages, both for the hosting and clearing, and make the UI. Matter of fact, the way we have shipped it is no example of good design. It's just something quick to get going. And once you can make the site look nice on the hosting side and do all the business rules that you want on the clearance side. And there are companies coming up that can do both hosting and clearing. There are companies trying to aggregate the hosting functions so you can give the content to them. They'll host it on their site and distribute it on scale. There are companies specializing purely on the clearance aspect. Reciprocal is one of those companies. Suicide Technologies is another company, and there are several companies coming forward. They're almost like the Visa or MasterCard clearing houses, in the sense that you can get content from any one of the websites, and you can go back, behind the scenes to that site to get the licenses. And these sites have, these people and other people, some of the other people have implemented a very highly scalable solution that can, meet the immediate and foreseeable demands for the next 2 years. So after you set up the rights manager, you get a default website, and it sets a default database. And the content management application is the simple web app that I talked about before. It can protect content and package it up into add the URLs and create encrypted data content. It helps you manage all the protected content you have on your website, and also it gives you a very high-level usage statistics. It tells you how many people have downloaded the content per day, per week, per month, how many licenses you issued, so you can come back to this website and see the demand you've created for the music. Again, this is just the starting step. You can go full steam ahead and create complex sites for statistics analysis and see how the business is doing. The clearance side, the product mentioned earlier, the samples that we give collect the information and save it in a SQL database. You can collect other information, credit cards, whatever. You can also maybe type into a site server common. And we've kept the performance in the forefront when we designed this thing. The encryption is industrial strength, but it's very fast. Very fast for audio and video, and the same is true for license assurance. You can, on a reasonably high-end machine 6 months ago, I'm sure we have much more faster machines than that now, you could issue about 500,000 licenses a day. And if you have more demand than that, you can bring more servers and easily create a cluster to bring the demand even higher, or bring the scalability even higher. On the client side, as I said earlier, the core component is, the APIs are integrated into the SDK, and you can have applications built on top of this SDK. Media Player is one of those applications, and there are other applications, and all of these launch the browser to get the license if it's not already there. The licenses themselves are stored in a regular file. The contents, the key contents are encrypted, so even though it's a file, you can't email the file to other friends and have it work. So the licenses are bound to that particular machine. And the key fields of a license are, one is content ID. Each piece of encrypted content has a unique ID. The license identifies which content or which group of content or songs it can clear. One of the, again, possibilities here is that if you want to sell an album with, say, 15 songs, you can choose the same key for all 15 songs and issue one license that clears all the songs. Other thing is that, it also has some rights information. The rights I mentioned are right to play, right to copy to portable device, and then the right to, enable backup restore and a couple of other assortment rights there. Expiry, you can specify how long the license is valid. 1 day, 10 days, the granularity is a day for the first version, or unlimited license. And the application aspect is, you mentioned earlier that first is promotional, which a lot of companies have done. And that this information, to repeat again, is between the hosting site and the customer. It doesn't come to Microsoft. And again, from a privacy aspect, the keys and things that Microsoft manages, they are all hidden internal to the components on server and client. None of this information is given out for people to trace the usage behavior. So if a hosting site wants to collect email addresses, etc., we strongly encourage them to put a privacy statement on their website, describe their policies, and be upfront with customers. And from a customer's point of view, again, it's up to them. They have a choice whether if a particular site asks for too much information, they don't want to give it, they don't have to. On the commercial side, the two cases are pre-issuing the license and license on first use. Most of the sites so far ask people to go to the website, get the license on first use. Some sites now are starting to implement pre-issuance, and you'll see a combination. Subscription, I talked about a little bit before. Not many people have done a lot in this area. It's wide open, and I think a lot of customers might like it, where they go in and they become a member of a website or a group, and then they get a license. Then all the content is cleared by the same license, and every month they go get a new license to give a subscription. So on the payment side, the key aspect when you go back on several steps on the commerce element, in commerce you have exchange of value, right? So you have from the hosting side you have content that you want to give it to the customer. You expect something else back in return. So the payment could be credit card with real money, or it could be the time that the customer spends on your website, or it could be their email address. So you can go through creative ways of doing this value transaction and capturing it in this website before you get the content and start giving the license stuff. So that pretty much covers the product that we shipped in Windows Media 4.0 a few months ago, and that describes the server side, client side. Now I'm going to switch to this other aspect for portable media. This part is in beta. Windows Media Format SDK is a long name for it. The Windows Media Device Manager is sort of a layer built upon the rights management technology to sort of take it from the PC to the portable devices. So what I talked so far deals with protected content distribution from the web or sources to the PC, customer's PC. Once it comes to the customer's PC, now if they want to copy to their next generation portable devices that have built-in security or built or to portable media, the new flash memory cards or other devices that have unique IDs that you can bind content to, WMDM comes in. Again, this is a SDK play. A few companies I'm sure will come out with lots of applications built upon this SDK that make it very easy for consumers to, number one, get content from the web, keep it on the PC, and then from the PC, use this technology to copy it to these portable devices. Also, this WMDM enables the applications to qualify for SDMI, the Secure Digital Music Initiative compliancy. So all this meets the requirements for SDMI. The way SDMI works is people have to follow certain guidelines on keeping content secure, on the number of copies the customers can make, etc., and then they can self-certify themselves as SDMI compliant. So to summarize, rights management is a framework for digital commerce. More than the restrictions that it can put in customers before they can use the content, the better way to see it as is a framework for commerce, and it's up to the content providers and hosters to come up with creative ways to not make this a stumbling block for consumers, but make it an incentive for consumers to want to come back and use this technology and apply it creatively. So the key idea is that make it very easy for content owners to take their content, go through these tools, and allow for the super distribution where customer gets it and they share it with their friends. Ride on the wave and still keep a handle on the commerce elements and control of it. So it's a way for them to get the value back in terms of email or common money, etc. And also it's a way for consumers to participate in this process without a lot of drawbacks. The best implementation of DRM is when customers don't even know it. They just go to a website, they answer some questions like they do today, and music just plays, or video just shows. And again, from a copy protection point of view, for the content owners, we've taken the first steps. The chips and the operating systems themselves have limitations because of the chips, because everyone has an Intel 386 or Pentium manual. You can figure out how to trap these ports. So we've done the first step of giving this protection, keeping it protected, and we keep extending this reach all the way onto the sound card. And again, this is not a way to block the consumers, but give the flexibility so that the consumers and the publishers and consumers can find the right trade-off. Again, this is the core operating system technology, core investment from Microsoft, and this is the first step, and we're going to do a lot more work in this area, and we'd love to hear your feedback in the kinds of creative applications you can come up with and ways you can use this technology. If you have any specific features or ways you'd like to see this evolve, let us know. I'm sure lots of emails have been floated around. If not, my email name is Raja, R-A-J-A, @microsoft.com. That's pretty much it, and I have about 3 more minutes left. If there are any questions, we can answer now. If not, we can do more during the panel discussion. So. Yes, the question is, does it work with Netscape? And the answer is yes. The dependency on browser is very small. The file download itself, both IE and Netscape do that. And for license issuance, the control that we have is an ActiveX control as well as a Netscape plugin. So the license can be given to both browsers. Yes. Question is, can this be implemented on other type of web servers? Again, the dependency on the web server is very weak in the sense that yes, the answer is yes. You run through this package tool, you get this file. This file can be put on any web server or any FTP server for the consumers to come and get it. Yes. Great question. The question is involving 2 parts. First is, a gentleman has used DRM for 3 months, right? Thank you. And they have sort of faced 2 problems. One is they have Mac customers that can't use DRM, so what's the story there? And this is one of the persistent requests we get. We'll have Mac Play soon. This is, it'll come out soon. Second question is, there was a hack posted that bypassed around Winamp, and that what are we doing about it? I'm sure that it was covered. It got a lot more press than the positive press we got. So I'm glad you asked if I can clarify 2 aspects. First aspect is that these hacks only work after a customer gets a license. These hacks cannot work before a customer gets a license. So in a way, it's like subscribing to HBO or a pay-per-view program. You first pay for it, and then once the program is downloaded, you put a VCR, tape it, VCR and tape it. So in a way, it doesn't affect the. In a way, it sort of minimizes the damage in terms of having the customers first go get the license, and if one of the customers that actually got the license cheats, gets this hack, and then converts into a WAV file, then there's an issue. On the second case, it's a very hard problem to prevent that, primarily because I said with the chips, with the way the manuals for CPUs out there, it's going to take some time to block all those holes. So the second part is that today on Windows and Linux or any other operating system, that the sound drivers, the path after the content is decrypted, before it goes to the sound card, it's vulnerable there. And that is vulnerable with our DRM, it's vulnerable with the best of our knowledge with our other DRMs out there today. And so in some ways that, I guess to summarize the answer is, of course, customers still have to get a license even with this hack. And after they get a license, some of them could use this hack, but that's a vulnerability with other DRMs as well. But that's something we're addressing in our future versions to make that even harder. Yes, sir. The question is, can we implement rights management with live content or live pay-per-view? The way we've shipped it, it doesn't work right away, but it takes very little effort to make that happen, and we'd be glad to follow up offline and help with that. Great question. The question is, if I buy a new PC or my computer crashes, do I have to rebuy all the licenses? It's a sort of a yes and no question. The answer is that the licenses are bound to the machine. So if you have backed up the file and you restore it back on the same PC, and the hardware has not changed, it will work. But if you bought a new PC and copied its license files to the new PC, it won't work. So for those cases, the catastrophic failures where customers have bought something and they want to move it to second PC, we are thinking of a way to, this is to be announced soon, is a way to send the license to a central server and have that be remapped to the second PC, where we put some rudimentary fraud detection schemes to make sure it doesn't, one person doesn't upload and millions of their friends get in. So we're putting some limited ways to copy from one PC to another PC in legitimate ways. And second thing is, for content owners that don't trust Microsoft to do it right, they can disable that in license files. So they can say in the license, I don't want Microsoft to, even in catastrophic case, to move it to second computer. And in those cases, what happens is, when a customer plays the content, it's taken back to the original website, and the original website can detect the returning user and say, oops, sorry, your computer crashed, or ask some questions to make sure that the computer really crashed and reissue the licenses. I've gone past my time and my colleague is waiting anxiously here, so I'm sure I'll be waiting outside and I'll be available for the panel, and I'm available on evening as well. So if you have any questions, please